What's up everyone, Jay here from Tap and Turn Gaming, coming at you today with a video on some spoilers for the upcoming Commander 2015 product, which will be releasing next week on Friday. So the spoilers for this stuff started this week on Monday, and from what I've seen so far, there's some pretty cool and exciting stuff that's been spoiled so far from this upcoming product. So let's kick it off and start taking a look at some of these cards. So the first one is this guy right here, Bastion Protector, a 3-cost 3/3. Commander creatures you control get +2/+2 and have indestructible. I love this card a lot. It's just another option for you if you're in white to protect your commander and make it stronger. So, I mean, I feel like this card's a shoe-in for anybody that's playing white. Just the fact that it makes your commander indestructible is just great. And, you know, makes it bigger. So, not only would I say this card's a shoe-in if you're playing white, especially if you're playing like a Voltron-style commander. You know, you want to be making your commander bigger anyways, so this card does that and makes it indestructible. So, all around, it's a really great card. And, you know, the way that it reads, commander creatures you control. Maybe you're playing blue too. Maybe you steal your opponent's commander, and now it's on your side of the board. It's going to get +2/+2 and have indestructible. So all around, this card's great. I like it a lot. I'm definitely going to be playing it in a lot of white decks that I have. Next up, we have Dread Summons. It's a black sorcery, 2 black and X. Each player puts the top X cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. For each creature card put into a graveyard this way, you put a 2/2 black zombie creature token onto the battlefield tapped. And I really like the quote on this, "Did you have a nice nap?" from Liliana Vess. So I like this card too. I could definitely see this finding a home in decks with a mill strategy. Maybe you're playing Feynaz, God of Deception, or Ona, Queen of the Fae. Even if you're not playing decks with a mill strategy, you know, maybe you play a lot of multiplayer commander. This is definitely a pretty decent card for you know, multiplayer commander. You know, if you're playing like a 4 or 5 player game and you dump like 6 into the X cost, you know, everybody's going to mill their top 6, and you're probably going to get quite a few 2/2 black zombies off of it. So overall, I like this card a lot. Next is Awaken the Sky Tyrant, a 4-cost red enchantment. When a source an opponent controls deals damage to you, sacrifice this. If you do, put a 5/5 red dragon creature token with flying onto the battlefield. Pretty weak card, if you ask me, at least in my eyes. You know, you invest 4 mana into it, and it just sits there and doesn't do anything until you're dealt damage. Granted, it probably won't be long before you're dealt damage, but all it does is get you a 5/5 vanilla flying dragon. You know, for like 2 more mana, I could just play a red dragon that does something, you know, for like 6 mana, or sometimes even 5. There's some pretty decent dragons out there that cost 5 mana. So, I don't know, I just feel like this card's really weak. You know, maybe you have some sort of recursion where you can keep slamming this down on the board, and, you know, whenever you're dealt damage, you get another 5/5 dragon. But, I mean, like I said, for a couple more mana, I could just play an actual dragon that has some sort of an ability, or has like an enter the battlefield effect or something like that. So, I mean, I just don't see why I would play this card personally. I mean, hell, you could play like a Dragon Master Outcast, and, you know, for 1 mana, and, you know, you could start just generating 5/5 dragons every time on your upkeep if you have 6 or more lands on the board. Granted, there's a stipulation to that too, but I mean, there's just so many other cards that you could play that are just better than this one, I think. I just feel like this is probably one of the weaker cards that I've seen from what's been revealed so far. But anyways, moving on. We have Verdant Confluence. It's a 6-cost green sorcery. choose 3, you may choose the same mode more than once. So right off the bat right there, I love this card, because the modes on this are really damn good. So the first one is put 2 +1/+1 counters on target creature. That one's kind of meh, but the other 2 are great. Return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand, or search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the field tapped, and shuffle. Those 2 modes are excellent, and the fact that you could, for instance, pick the second one 3 times and get 3 permanents from your graveyard back to your hand, great. Be able to search for 3 basics and put them onto the battlefield tapped, great as well. And I feel like 6 mana to do any 3 of these things and potentially do one of them more than once is really, really good. There's a reason why like Eternal Witness is like $5 or $6 at an uncommon. Granted, that lets you take back any card. This is target permanent, so you wouldn't be able to take back instants and sorceries, but still, that's going to encompass a lot of the stuff that's in your graveyard. Creatures, artifacts, enchantments, lands, planeswalkers. You're going to get something back with it. So I really like this card a lot, and I feel like that they'll probably have cards like these for each color. So I'm pretty excited to see what those other ones will do. Anyways, moving on to the next card is Dawnbreak Reclaimer. It's a 6-cost 5/5 Flying Angel. And I just want to point out that I love the art on this card. Just this little, radiant golden, judge's scale, I guess you could say, is really cool. Looks very similar to the thing that the knight is holding on the really, really old card Balance. So I really like the art on this card a lot. But anyway, at the beginning of your end step, choose a creature card in an opponent's graveyard. Then that player chooses a creature card in your graveyard. You may return those cards to the battlefield under their owner's control. Now, when I first read what the card does, I was like, oh, well, my opponent gets something back too. And then they pick something in my graveyard, and then I get that back. So, probably what would happen is you'll pick something garbage in their graveyard, and they'll pick something garbage in your graveyard, and if you're okay with what you picked and what they picked to get back onto the board, yeah, it's creature resurrection for sure, but what I do like about it is that it's a you may, so maybe, you pick something in their graveyard that you don't mind them getting back, and then they pick something in your graveyard that you maybe don't want. You can say, no, we're not going to do that because it's a you may. But, there's, ways that you could abuse this. You could Bojuka Bog your opponent's graveyard, and, actually, I'm not sure if that would work because you have to choose a creature in their graveyard. Maybe it's something stupid, and you pick that. Oh, yeah, you can have that back. And then they pick something in your graveyard. But overall, it's not a bad card. Definitely could see this being played in, group hug decks that, want to make friends with everybody at the table. Very political card as well. So, I could definitely see this finding a home in some decks. Would I play it? Maybe. I'd have to play around with it to see if I would really want to cut it into something, but overall, it's not a bad card. Next, we have Gigantoplasm, a 4-cost clone that comes into play as a copy of any creature on the board except it gains. Pay X, this creature has base power and toughness XX. So, clone by itself, just the good old-fashioned clone, costs, the same amount of mana as this does. So at the very worst, this is just another clone. At its best, you can make the creature that you clone bigger. So let's say you clone somebody's, Eternal Witness, and it's a 2/1, and you get something back from your graveyard with it. Then you can dump some mana into it and make it a much bigger Eternal Witness. And this isn't until end of turn or anything, it's permanent. Once you activate that, that creature just stays that base power and toughness unless you activate the ability again and maybe make it smaller or make it even bigger. So, it's pretty cool. At the worst, it's another clone. At its best, it's a clone that makes whatever you're cloning bigger if you want to dump the mana into it. So, It's got my thumbs up. Next up is Deadly Tempest, a 6-cost black sorcery. Destroy all creatures. Each player loses life equal to the number of creatures he or she controlled that were destroyed this way. This card destroys token decks. Just, if you're playing against someone that's playing a token deck and they're flooding the board and you cast this, you're probably going to come close to winning the game. This card definitely punishes people that are playing token-style decks and decks that want to flood the board with creatures. Yeah, it hits you too, but if you're casting a Wrath, you're probably behind on the whole creature game. So, it's probably going to hurt you less than it's going to hurt your opponent or everybody else at the table. So this card definitely gets my thumbs up. It's really, really great. And plus it's just another black Wrath that you have access to in Commander. And as we all know, Commander's a very Wrath-heavy meta. Next up we have Illusory's Predation. So it's kind of a little foreshadowing to one of the legends that we're getting with this new product. But anyway, it's an 8-cost green sorcery. For each creature your opponents control, put a 4/4 green beast creature token onto the battlefield. Each of those beasts fights a different one of those creatures. This card's very nice. It does cost a lot of mana at 8, but this card has the potential to one-sidedly wrath your opponent's board and get you an army of 4/4 beasts. So, like I said before, maybe you're playing against someone that's playing a token deck, and let's say they have, 20 1/1 green saplings on the board. You cast this, you're going to get 20 4/4s. All those 4/4s are going to fight those 1/1s, and, anybody that knows math knows that all those 4/4s are going to wipe out all those 1/1s, and now you just completely wiped your opponent's board and got 20 4/4s. So the potential that this card has to just wipe somebody's board and get you an army of guys is pretty high, because, not many creatures are going to survive 4 damage. Yeah, maybe some of your 4/4 beasts will bite it too, but more than likely you're going to wipe a lot of stuff off your opponent's board, and you're going to have quite a few 4/4s stick around, if not all of them. So next up we have Talamein's Captain. It's a 5-cost 5/5 with Vigilance and Monstrosity for 5 and 2 white, and it has Monstrosity 3. So if the creature isn't monstrous, you put 3 +1/+1 counters on it, and it becomes monstrous. And when this becomes monstrous, exile all artifacts and enchantments. Really great ability. You can drop this guy, and a 5/5 for 5 with Vigilance isn't bad by any means on its own. And, you can let it sit there, and maybe, your opponent starts playing some artifacts and enchantments that you don't like. You can make this guy monstrous and exile all the stuff that you don't want on the board. So, pretty cool card. I can definitely see it finding a home in some decks that want some access to artifact and enchantment removal. Next up we have Illusory Ambusher, a 5-cost 4/1 with Flash, so you can cast it anytime you can cast an instant. And whenever it's dealt damage, draw that many cards. This card's great. Essentially, this card reads, deal 4 damage to target attacking creature and draw cards equal to that creature's power. So, for 5 mana, that's not a bad ability by any means. Like we said with Illusory's Predation, not a lot of creatures are going to survive 4 damage. 4 damage will take out a pretty decent amount of creatures in the format. And not only that, you're going to draw quite a few cards. So, if someone's attacking you with a 3/3 and you flash this in and you block with it, you're going to take out their 3/3 and you're going to draw 3 cards. So this card's great. I like it a lot. And I'm not a huge blue player, but I like this card a lot. It's really nice. Next up we have Banshee of the Dread Choir, a 5-cost 4/4 with a new ability called Myriad. So basically what that is whenever this creature attacks, for each opponent other than defending player, you may put a token that's a copy of this creature onto the battlefield tapped and attacking that player, or a planeswalker he or she controls. exile the tokens at end of combat. So basically, Myriad really benefits you playing in a multiplayer environment. So if you're playing one-on-one, that ability does absolutely nothing, because it'll only get you the tokens onto the board tapped and attacking that player for every other player that's in the game. I'm sorry, for each other opponent. So, if you're playing a 4-player game and you attack somebody with this, you're going to get 2 tokens of it onto the board tapped and attacking that opponent that you're attacking. So, it's a really cool ability, but you have to be playing multiplayer EDH for it to do anything. But, that aside, whenever it deals damage to a player, combat damage to a player, that player discards a card. So, it's a really, like I said, it's a pretty cool ability. I like the direction that they were going with it. I could definitely see this, being quite annoying, that ability anyway. If you're playing a huge commander game, 5, 6, 7, 8 people, and you have a creature with Myriad, and you attack somebody, and you get like 6 or 7 tokens of this, onto the board tapped and attacking that player, I could definitely see that being pretty overpowered. But, overall, this particular creature doesn't do anything, astonishing. It just makes you discard a card if it hits you. So, I do like this new ability, Myriad. It is pretty cool, but, like I said, you have to be playing multiplayer in order for it to do anything. So if, you're a 1v1 player like, Derek and I mostly are, these cards do absolutely nothing for you. So, anyways, moving on. Next we have Fiery Confluence. It's a 4-cost red sorcery, so it's another one of these things where you get to choose 3 and you can choose the same mode more than once. So the first mode is it deals 1 damage to each creature, or it deals 2 damage to each opponent, or destroy target artifact. So, pretty cool. Not as great as the green one, but then again it does cost 4 instead of 6 mana. So, but you could also, choose the 1 damage to each creature 3 times, and, basically Slag Storm, or, choose 2 damage to each opponent 3 times and deal 6 damage to all your opponents, or destroy 3 artifacts. So, it's definitely not a bad card by any means. Definitely don't think it's as good as the green one, but it's not bad. So next we have Skullwinder. It's a 3-cost 1/3 snake with Death Touch, and when it enters the battlefield, return target card from your graveyard to your hand. Then choose an opponent. That player returns a card from his or her graveyard to his or her hand. Really, really nice card. It's basically kind of like an Eternal Witness, but it'll also make it so that one of your opponents gets a card back from their graveyard to their hand. Maybe you pick an opponent that has no cards in their graveyard. That would be beneficial to you, but I really like the fact that it gets me something back from my graveyard. I just don't want to give anybody else anything back from their graveyard. But, if you're playing like a group huggy type deck, you could definitely play this. It's definitely a card that will, make you a friend at the table, because it'll give somebody else a card back from their graveyard too. So, overall, I do like the card. It's essentially an Eternal Witness that hits you and another player, so it's definitely not bad. Next up, we have our first artifact, Seal of the Guildpact. It's a 5-cost artifact. As it comes into play, choose 2 colors, and each spell you cast costs 1 less to cast for each of the chosen colors it is. So that's really, really nice. And the fact that it references Ravnica, because, it's the Guildpact and it's got all the symbols of all the guilds on it, kind of hits home for me, because I really love the Ravnica block and the Return to Ravnica block. But overall, this card's really, really nice. So if you're playing a 2-color deck and you pick your 2 colors, obviously you're going to pick your 2 colors. Everything that you cast is going to cost 1 less to cast for each of the colors that it is. So, you know, if you pick, let's say, red-white, and you cast something that's red-white, and let's say maybe it costs 2 a red and a white, it's only going to cost you 1 red and 1 white. So, this card's really good. I really like it a lot. I could definitely see myself playing this in quite a few decks, actually. Right, next up is Sandstone Oracle, a 7-cost 4/4 artifact creature Sphinx with flying, and when it enters the battlefield, choose an opponent. If that player has more cards in hand than you, draw cards equal to the difference. So, it's definitely not a bad card. 7 mana is a little high, but it kind of has a similar effect to, like, Damia, Sage of Stone. Kind of. You know, she lets you draw cards equal to the difference of what's in your hand. So, you know, you could... I mean, this card's colorless, so you can play it in any deck. I could definitely see people that are playing red playing this as a way to just refill their hand. But, you know, you could definitely play this in, like, a flicker deck. You know, maybe, like, blue-white, where you can flicker creatures in and out. You know, and refill your hand when it enters the battlefield. You know, if your opponent has 6 cards in hand and you have, you know, 4, it'll draw you 2 cards. So, I mean, it's definitely not a bad card. It's probably not one of the more impressive ones that I've seen, but it's not bad by any means. Next up is Scythe Cloth. It's a 5-cost artifact equipment with living weapon, so that's a returning ability from New Phyrexia, I believe it was. So when this comes into play, you put a 0/0 black germ creature token onto the board and then immediately attach this to it. The equipped creature gets +1/+1, and whenever the equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, that player loses half of his or her life rounded up. Pretty brutal ability. It's very similar to, I believe, the Plane Chase card, Quietus Spike. So, you know, very similar to that. If the creature that has this on it hits your opponent, it's going to hurt a lot. They're going to lose half their life. So it's a pretty brutal card, a pretty mean card. Not a bad card by any means. It's definitely not bad at all. But cards like these I generally try to stray away from because, you know, no one wants to get hit by a creature and lose half their life rounded up. No one wants that. You know, and it's kind of like insulting if, like, you get hit by, like, a 1/1 with this on it, and that 1/1 just essentially dealt you 20 damage if you're at 40 life. So, you know, like I said, not a bad card, but cards like these that are just really that brutal, I personally try to stray away from. Next up, we have Blade of Selves. It's a 2-cost equipment, costs 4 to equip. And equipped creature has Myriad. So, you know, like we saw with the Banshee that had Myriad, this will turn that creature into a creature with Myriad. So, that's really cool. The fact that, you know, we get an equipment that will give whatever creature you put it on Myriad, I can think of lots of retarded good things that you could do with this card. Put this on a Grave Titan. Woo! You're gonna, you know, if you put this on a Grave Titan and you're playing like a 4-player game and you attack somebody with that Grave Titan, then you're gonna get 2/2 zombies off that Grave Titan attacking. Then you're gonna get 2 more Grave Titan tokens onto the board, tapped and attack. Like, you're gonna reap boatloads of 2/2 zombies, essentially. You know, you could do that with, you know, Sun Titan, resurrect a whole bunch of stuff out of your graveyard. You know, this card's really, really nice. Again, you do have to be playing multiplayer for it to do anything, but possibilities with this card, whew, endless. Anything with like an enter the battlefield effect, you want to put this on. Because you're gonna trigger that enter the battlefield effect a lot of times if you're playing multiplayer. So next up we have Command Beacon, which is a new land that we're getting. Taps for a colorless, let's rewind that. Taps for a colorless, and then you can tap it and sacrifice it, and put your commander into your hand from the command zone. I really do like the quote on this too. I gazed once into that light, now it burns in my mind, forever denying me rest, from Riku of Two Reflections. So this card's pretty damn cool. So, maybe you're playing a general like Kalia the Vast. I play Kalia. And anybody else that plays Kalia, you know that she's very, very hated. No one likes to see her on the other end of the table, and everybody's going to try to kill her every time she hits the board. Every time. So this card, gives you kind of like a one-time access to kind of almost resetting the commander tax on your commander. So, let's say, like I said, you're playing Kalia, and maybe she's been killed, 3 or 4 times, and now she costs, a shitload of mana to play from the command zone. You can sacrifice this and put her in your hand, and then you can just cast her for her 4 mana. So, it's nice to be able to, kind of get around that commander tax for, kind of that one-time deal. So I really do like this card a lot. I'll probably be playing this in a lot of my decks where the commander gets hated off the board pretty frequently. Alright, and these next couple cards were in a different language, so I have them up on the website that I pulled them from, so we're going to just kind of switch windows here real quick and take a look at those. So the next card is called Viper's Brood. It's a 5-cost 3/3 snake with Myriad, and when it deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. Pretty sweet card, especially if you're playing multiplayer, because that's what Myriad is like trying to get you to do is play multiplayer in order for these cards to be good. But let's say, like I said with some of the other examples, you're playing a 4-player game, you attack somebody with this, you're going to get 2 copies of this onto the board tapped and attacking that player because there are 2 other opponents in the game. Maybe draw 3 cards because all 3 of them hit. Definitely not bad. It's definitely not bad at all. These cards with Myriad, like I said, I probably won't be playing too often or be playing with, because most of the stuff that I play is 1v1 with Derek. But, definitely not a bad card by any means. Next up we have Dream Pillager. He's a 7-cost 4/4 flying dragon, and whenever he deals combat damage to a player, exile that many cards from the top of your library. Until end of turn, you may play non-land cards exiled this way. I don't really like this card too much. I really like the art on it, though. The art's pretty phenomenal. But the card itself, I don't really like this card that much. Yeah, it's not bad that I get to, exile 4 cards off the top of my library if he hits, and then I can cast those cards. But it's only until end of turn. So if I don't play them, they're exiled forever. And maybe I already played a land during my turn. I'm sorry, it says you may play non-land cards, so never mind what I just said about that. But, if I don't play them, they're exiled forever. So, you almost want to attack with this guy when you have mana available to, cast the things that you might potentially be exiling with him. And, if you hit something that costs a lot of mana, and you don't have the mana for it, well, it's going to stay exiled forever. So, I don't particularly like exiling stuff off the top of my own library. Granted, I can play them with this card, but, if the situation arises that I can't, or for some reason I don't want to, at that moment in time, now those cards are gone forever. Next up, we have Vine Centaur. He's a 4-cost 1/1 Centaur plant, which is a pretty interesting mix of creature types, but he also has Trample, And when he enters the battlefield, he enters with a +1/+1 counter for each land in every graveyard. And then whenever a land is put into a graveyard from anywhere, you may pay double green if you do return him from your graveyard to your hand. He's pretty cool. I could definitely see myself maybe playing him in my Titania deck, because that deck wants lands to go to the graveyard. I could also see this guy being played in decks with a self-mill strategy. Maybe, something that uses dredge, or, you want to mill yourself to, do something. Maybe you're playing a deck with, like, Sidisi Brood Tyrant as the commander, and you want to be milling yourself. So I could definitely see him finding a home in a deck like that. He also does kind of combat decks that are using that same strategy. So, if someone's self-milling across the table from you, he's probably going to get bigger, because it's for, lands in all graveyards, not just your graveyard. And then, whenever a land goes to your graveyard from anywhere, from your deck, from the board, from your hand, he's got built-in recursion, so he's definitely not a bad card by any means. He's kind of situational, at least from my perspective of, decks that I would want to put him in. Very situational card, but, definitely not a bad card by any means. So that wraps up all of the cards that we're getting from the new Commander product that have been spoiled so far anyway, that are the non-legendary cards. They have spoiled, I believe, 4 or 5 of the legendary creatures that we're getting in this product. There is going to be 10, I want to say, altogether. So let's start taking a look at some of those, shall we? And the first one is Mizzix of the Magnus. He is a 4-cost 2/2. He costs 2, a blue and a red, so he is of the Izzet colors. And whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell with converted mana cost greater than the number of experience counters you have, you get an experience counter. So if you play him, the very first spell that you cast is going to net you an experience counter, because you have 0 at that point. And then every one you cast after that will net you an experience counter if the cost of the card that you're casting is less than the number of experience counters that you have. And then instant and sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each experience counter you have. So definitely a pretty cool creature. I like him a lot. The fact that he can exponentially lower the cost of your instants and sorceries by 1 for every experience counter that you have is pretty damn powerful. I like it a lot. Next up, we have Daxos the Returned. He was alive. He's from the Theros block, so a lot of you may remember him. When he was alive, he was blue-white. Now he's white-black. He is now a zombie soldier instead of a human soldier. So he has died and gone to the underworld and has been quote-unquote returned. Now he wears one of these goofy gold masks like all the other quote-unquote return do from the Theros block. But anyways, 3-cost 2/2. When you cast an enchantment spell, you get an experience counter. So the whole experience counter thing is, I kind of forgot to mention it with the first card that we looked at, but that's like a new thing for this Commander product. So, I have a feeling that the cards that you'll see like front and center inside the boxes when the product becomes available will probably be these guys that give you experience counters. It's an interesting kind of new mechanic. The fact that you get experience counters when you do something, but anyways, so whenever you cast an enchantment, you get an experience counter. Then he has an ability where you pay 1 a white and a black, and you put a white and black spirit enchantment creature token onto the battlefield. It has this creature's power and toughness are each equal to the number of experience counters you have. Overall, I feel like that's a really underwhelming ability. It's basically the same thing as the very first iteration of Ajani, his ultimate, where you would get an XX white avatar creature token onto the board where X is your life total. it's basically the same thing as that, except instead of your life total, it's the amount of experience counters that you have. Just a vanilla creature that's white and black. I mean, it's really underwhelming for me. If the ability was something like, maybe if the creature had flying, or maybe if, it was pay 3 and you get X 1/1 white and black spirits with flying onto the board, where X is the number of experience counters that you have, that would be much better. The fact that it just makes a creature, that can potentially be big, if you have 5 experience counters, it'll be a 5/5. If you have 6, it'll be a 6/6. Yeah, you can generate, 5 5s or 6 6s or however many experience counters you have. You can make a creature that big for 3 mana, but the fact that it's just a vanilla creature, kind of makes me feel like this is a very underwhelming card. I really like the direction they were going with it. Overall, I just feel like it's a pretty underwhelming ability. Although I do really like his art a lot, just like the colors in the background and stuff like that. I really like the art on it a lot, but sorry, Daxos, I liked you better when you were alive rather than now when you're dead. So moving on, the next card is, how do you say that? Macerich, Crawl Death Priest? Yeah, we'll go with that. Macerich. So he's a 5-cost 2/2. He costs 3, a black and a green. He is a legendary insect shaman with flying. And whenever a player sacrifices another permanent, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. This guy, for me, is probably the most interesting card that I've seen. And he kind of is calling to me to build the deck around him. Also, this card would go very, very well into my Prosh deck for sure. Because, if I play this guy on turn 5 and then I cast Prosh on turn 6, and I get those 6 kobolds, and then I sacrifice each one of those kobolds to Prosh, Prosh is going to get the +1/+0 off of his own ability, and then this is going to trigger because I just sacrificed a permanent, and it's going to put a +1/+1 counter on each of my creatures. So essentially, the idea that I have about it is, if I have this guy on the board and then I cast Prosh the next turn and sacrifice all 6 of those kobolds, Prosh is going to get 6 +1/+1 counters and then get +6/+0. So that's pretty damn sweet. But I really like the flavor of this guy. If we read the flavor text here, the clicks and buzz of the Undercity proclaim him the incarnation of decay. So I really do like the flavor of this guy. He's kind of all about death and decay, right? He's in the appropriate colors, black and green. The Golgari are all about death and decay. And whenever a player, it's not just an opponent, it's not just you, whenever any player sacrifices a permanent, your team gets bigger. So I really do like the idea of this guy and the direction and the flavor of him, and he's really calling to me to build a deck around him. Next up, we have Talamein, Disciple of Iroas. He is a 4-cost 3/3. He's Boros colors. He costs 2, a red and a white, and he has double strike and vigilance. And whenever you cast a creature spell with converted mana cost 5 or greater, you get an experience counter, and then he gets +1/+1 for each experience counter you have. Definitely not a bad card by any means. I could definitely see him being like a Voltron style general. I mean, the fact that he double strikes is pretty damn sweet. And he's got vigilance, so he's never going to tap down by attacking. The only thing that kind of holds him back is, at least in my eyes, is you have to be casting creature spells with 5 or higher mana cost to get experience counters. So, that's kind of a downfall to him, I guess, in my eyes. He's probably one of the slower creatures that net you experience counters. I mean, with the Izzet guy and Daxos, you could definitely rack up the experience counters with those relatively quickly. With this guy, you have to be casting cards with a very specific mana cost. So, I mean, in my eyes, that's kind of a downfall on him. But other than that, he's a beat stick. He can get big, and he's got double strike and vigilance. So he's not bad by any means. I just feel like he's one of the slower new legends that we got as far as generating experience counters for yourself. Next we have Cido, whatever. We'll say Cido or Roshi Archmage. He's a 3-cost 2/2, 1 a green and a blue for a legendary snake wizard. You can pay a green and a blue. Target creature can't be blocked this turn. If that creature is a snake, it gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Pretty solid ability. Even if you're not playing tribal snakes, which I feel like seeing this card, you know, it'll give people a reason to build tribal snakes. You know, even if you're not playing tribal snakes or you're not playing many snakes in your deck, just the fact that this guy can make any creature unblockable for 2 mana is great. It's really good. And I really do like the flavor text on this as well. Our revered ancestor Sashiro gave us wisdom greater than poison and fangs. So, you know, Sashiro was a legendary creature from Champions of Kamigawa, which a lot of people hated that set. Some people liked it, but the majority of people hated it. It was a very legendary creature-heavy set, but it really does kind of make me happy when they give nods to, like, you know, previous sets and previous creatures and stuff like that, and they're just mentioned on cards. I really do like the little nods and nuances that they do with those. But overall, I really like this guy. Just seeing him, like, oh, I want to build tribal snakes because, you know, he can make a creature unblockable, and if that creature's a snake, he gets bigger. So I really do like this guy a lot. He's pretty cool. But just the fact that 2 mana, a green and a blue, make anything unblockable, yeah, really good. Alright, and that's it. So that wraps up the spoilers for the Commander 2015 product that has been spoiled so far. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you enjoyed some of these cards. You know, maybe you're looking forward to building a deck around some of those legends that we saw, or adding in some of the non-legendary cards that we saw, you know, into existing decks that you have. You know, let me know in the comments section. I love talking Commander, you know, so let me know what you think of these cards. I'm pretty excited for this new product. I mean, I say that every year, but, you know, just seeing some of the new stuff just really gets me pumped and gets me excited for the product to come out. And there definitely are some cards that I want to get my hands on and maybe build decks around or put into existing decks that I have. So, again, that about wraps it up, guys. So if you enjoyed the video, thumbs up the video. Let me know that you enjoyed watching it so that we know to make videos like this in the future, spoiler videos for upcoming products. You know, like I said, leave me some comments in the comment section below of what you think of these cards. And if you're not already subscribed to Tap and Turn Gaming, please hit that subscribe button. We really do appreciate it. At the time of filming this, we're at 841 subscribers. So thank you for that. Once we get to 1,000 subscribers, we are going to do a very special giveaway, little contest for when we hit 1,000 subscribers. So, like I said, if you're not subscribed, crush that subscribe button. But this has been Jay with Tap and Turn Gaming. Again, hope everybody enjoyed the video. Like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. And we'll catch you later in another video to talk about some more spoilers when more cards are spoiled for this set. So, thanks a lot.